that we are coming here to make sure that we give you the skill, because they recognize that majority of these young people leave school but have not entered into colleges or gotten into the labor market with the skills that they deserve or that they need in order to get employed. So KCB is coming to ensure that they give these skills so that they can be able to start and grow their enterprises. Now, KCB, through that to Jejuri program, has actually created 150,000 jobs, trained 35,000 young people, and incubated over 10,594 youth, and disbursed 26 million shillings of loans to these young people so that they can start their business and be able to do something great for the Republic. Now, KCB says that you not only just get the skill, but will also give you the tools of trade that you need to start your business. Are you into, I know you are into matters to do with food security. If there is a young person who's into agriculture, they will give them the spraying guns to make sure that they go into these farms and spray, give them loans to be able to get their pangas, their shockers, to be able to come till your farm and make sure that they are able to get into the employment sector. And through that, they are saying if you want to talk to them through it, the government should also get into that. Just go to kcb.com/foundation and all this information will be availed to you.
There you go.
Excellent.
Welcome once again, Dr. Menjo, to the conversation this morning.
Thank you.
Karibuni sana.
Asante.
We saw you about a year ago.
Yeah.
And here we are back to have this conversation about, food security, giving us an update in terms of what's happening, because it's a big ticket item for government. Okay. And of course, you being in the Executive Office of the President, a food security advisor for that, we'll be having that conversation this morning. So thank you for being in the hot seat today. We're going to welcome you to the conversation today with today's proverb. And Siti is going to share that with you, and then you can tell us what you think about that, and we can get into it properly. Is that all right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Proverbs for the whole of this week are from the Republic of Angola. Okay? Yes, it is a country with a population of, well, not too many people, 37 million. Not too few either. But there it is, capital Luanda. The official language spoken in that country is Portuguese. But the national language, there are four. There's Kibundu, Umbundu, Chokwe, and Kikongo. How many national languages do we have in Kenya? You're all Kenyans, so I'm asking the question. How many national languages do we have in Kenya?
National, there's one.
Two.
3, 5.
It's two.
Two.
Swahili?
And
English.
Yes.
Okay.
A covered mouth will not have flies.
He cleared his throat.
Well, yeah, simple enough. Proverb. Nakari, what do you think the Angolans were trying to tell us?
They're saying that, ideally flies follow some form of stench.
Yes.
Basically. And sometimes what comes out of our mouths can be stench, and if it's covered, you would not attract those flies, basically. So be careful what you're saying. Thank you.
Exactly. You could attract something, that's for sure. All right. Good to hear your interpretation of that. And even as we get into this food security conversation, there are very many things that come up in that today. But you sit in the office of the president. Food security is one of the big ticket items, like we mentioned before, when we talk about what can be provided. If we give a little bit of background, 2024 saw us come out of 2023, which was a terrible drought year, right? 23 out of the 47 counties were heavily affected by this, and we saw millions of people really on the brink of starvation. We saw that there had to be a buyout of farm animals, cattle. We saw that there were many that died. There was huge loss. We came into 2024, and then there were floods, and again there was destruction of agricultural, harvest. There was loss again, and affected, whether we like it or not, food security. So can we start off with an update in terms of where Kenya is today with food security, and again looking at what exactly food security means?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Oko. And thank you, City and Dennis, for having me again. Actually, it's 2 years.
2 years
since
now.
the last time I was here. And when I came here that time, you remember I shared our vision, our plan under the better. Remember in our office, we track transformation. That's why it's called bottom-up economic transformation agenda. So we look at three things that has to do with the masses in any field. Masses. The number two, it has to be economic, so it's no longer social, and then it has to be transformative. Because in terms of food security, we're asking ourselves, 50 years, 60 years after independence, we're still almost saying the same things we said when we were 14 million people. Now we are 52 million people. So we had to come up with methods and ways of ensuring that we don't go back in the same circle every year. So basically on better, we had 5 key pillars, which is agriculture, which is the key pillar. Then we have MSME. Then we have housing. Then we have digital economy. And then we have the health component. Of course, all these have linkages to food security. Kenya being an agricultural country, and 75% of our population relying on agriculture, then it's important that agriculture performs for it too. So our role basically in the Office of the President is to track those transformation agendas. We don't do everything that the ministry does. And to do that, we focused on 3 key areas. We focused on first, making sure we are food secure. We looked at those key value chains that ensures we are food secure. Then number 2, we reduce on imports. Remember when we just came in, we were importing food worth 500 billion, considering the dollar then, because the dollar was what was also making it move that high. Then we were also focusing on value addition, just to make sure that whatever we export has value. We increase the value of what, because as you realize, we export most of our agriculture export raw. And we are getting very low percentage of its actual value. And on food security, we are focusing on those staple foods, just to make sure that our people have food on the table. Remember, we came in when we just came in from a very bad drought, and we also had a lot of issues on food security. We were very food insecure. And because of that, the key staple food was maize. And because of that, you remember the Fourier revolution and all those things that were related to this. So the focus was to do a quick intervention to ensure that people have enough food on their table. And the quick intervention, which was cutting across, was the fertilizer intervention. Because fertilizer cuts across value chains. People thought it was just about maize, but the fertilizer was going to all the key food items, maize, rice, beans, sugar, and many other food, livestock food, feed, were also relying on this fertilizer. So that key activity was implemented. And because of that fertilizer, I think we can say we are safe on almost 3 food items now. We are safe on maize, because in the first year, we hit 67 million bags against our requirement of 44 million bags. So you could see we had an excess of about 23 million bags in the first year. Then this year, 2024, because that was 2023. This year, 2024, we're projecting to hit 74 million bags.
2024 ends in 13 days, 14 days.
Yes, it's already, because based on our data now that we have on the ground, we actually, and the acreage planted, we're getting about 74 million bags. So,
if I may ask, Dr. Menjo, when we talk about that, these bags have been collected, where are they? Are we talking about NCPB short storage? Where are these bags? Or are we saying that this is what farmers have said they've collected? Or is it in a central place whereby you will say it will be released into the market later? Is it actually somewhere sitting?
It's spread across the 3 areas. Remember, the first store is at the farm. That's the beginning of food security. Farmers stock their own maize. You remember, some of them actually produce for subsistence. Just want to produce to make sure their families are safe the whole year. So that's the first store. Then the second store are in various warehouses, including cereal boards and the like. And then the third one is now in milling institutions. So all this is spread in the 3 areas. What we are sure is we planted 6.7 million acres of maize, and the average production has risen to around 11 bags from original 8 bags, just because of this intervention on fertilizer. And these are so for maize, we were actually worried this year that we were going to have a price failure because of this excess number of bags. But good enough, our region, there's been crop failure in the surrounding countries, and this has helped us somehow stabilize our prices in this country. So that's why the price of maize dropped initially to 3,500, but it has come back to 4,000 per bag, which means there's also price stability for farmers.
I have to ask, when you say this amount for a bag, okay, is it a price that is fixed so that anybody who has planted maize and wishes to sell it knows what they should sell it at? Is it the price at which the government pays for the maize when you want to store it? And is it a price that the farmer considers to be adequate for his labors and for the product that he's selling?
Thank you, Siti. Basically, the price ideally is market driven, ideally, based on supply and demand. But government intervenes occasionally to stabilize that price by buying a certain stock, like this time 1 million bags, just to stabilize the price for those who really can't get it. And the current price of 3,500 set by government is completely within the cost of production. The farmer is making some margin. Remember the fertilizer subsidy program. The price dropped all the way from 7,000 shillings per 50 kilo bag to currently about 2,500. So that drop in fertilizer, and that's normally the biggest cost, has enabled the farmer to start making margins even at 3,500. Remember when they were buying at 7,000, even paying them up to 5,000 was still not breaking even. So now that has come down significantly through that intervention.
You use the word stabilizing. What does that mean exactly?
Stabilizing means the government buys stock, ideally for food security, for stocking, but at the same time it does two things. You stock to make sure that in case we go into a bad time, the government has something to release to the population, to the millers and the like. But at the same time, on this other side, the price they set also regulates the price, basically. Because if left alone, with this big number of maize now that is being produced, sometimes people would end up buying a bag at 2,000 shillings. And that would be unfair to the farmer. So what government does is to fix that kind of a price, buy a certain volume, and that on it. So the government acts as another market for the produce. that way stabilizing the market.
Yet, Dr.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yet, Dr. Every time the government seems to be setting these prices that they want to, with which they want to buy these maize from the farmer is always complaining in the sense that the input that they put into producing a bag of maize is much more than the offer that the government is giving. Therefore, as we talk about matters to do with food security, the farmer is always willing to sell outside the country so that they get the highest return to the product that they have. Therefore, is it a question of the government is setting and shooting the farmer on the foot?
Yeah, actually, that was the case previously, when, as I said, the fertilizer cost was very, very high. But what happened over time when the price of fertilizer came down and productivity went up, because price is a factor of productivity. Yeah. So if your volumes are low, if you are and getting 5 bags per acre, definitely. Your cost of production would be all the way up to 5,000 or 4,000, and therefore this kind of price would be low. But currently, our P&L is showing that the price is about 2,400 shillings. So if you are paying 3,500, is still making. But the point is, with enhanced productivity, definitely the cost of production comes down, because you're using the same cost to produce more bags. And I'll tell you this, we are still the most expensive. Our maize is still the most expensive in the region.
Meaning it's the most expensive to buy?
Yes, because if Tanzania, theirs is lower. Of course, their production system is still different. Uganda is also still lower. Their soil fertility is still very good, so they use very little inputs and still produce. And Kenya, because we've really pushed intensive production for long and structured fertilizer regimes and things like that, we sort of messed our soil ecosystem. So productivity came down. And that is why there was a direct government also intervention on the type of fertilizer to be used, because our soil had become acidic. Our production was not going up anymore, it was coming down. And with that affected the cost of production. So the effort has been, let's change the type of fertilizer. We're doing a serious soil analysis, sampling for the whole country to now determine the real fertilizer to be used for every region. So that's not also a general one again.
Because I ask at this point, when you talk fertilizer, I'm a layperson.
Yes.
When I hear fertilizer, I just hear fertilizer. So what alternatives do we have really in terms of fertilizer, and which of these varieties would be useful, helpful to our soil and for us as well? I mean, what is available and what is it that we can actually get to ensure that we optimize on what you're saying?
Okay. Thank you, Siti. You remember when we started in 2022, the main fertilizer used was called DAP. It was mainly DAP. Research showed that DAP increases acidity. It's a very fast, with intensive input, you get very fast growth, increase in production, but for a short time. It's a sprinter.
And then the soil runs
and then the soil now messes up.
Yes.
Then now is when, after this government came to power, said, let's look at our soil fertility issue. And we brought in NPK 23. And initially there was a lot of resistance because people are used to DAP.
Yeah.
But that first year, because of that NPK, is when we jumped our production from 36 million bags to 67 million bags, almost doubling. Of course, with the good rains and all the other positive factors that came in. So that was the jump. But then now we're still using NPK, but the government said it's not right to just use NPK. We need to have targeted fertilizer application depending on the soil.
On the soil.
So this year, January, we're going to do now a national soil survey sampling to ensure now we can do now what we call soil health program. The soil health program does not necessarily use fertilizer. It can even mean, actually, from analysis, you might find you don't need fertilizer. Maybe you just need lime. In other areas, maybe you just need organic fertilizer.
Right.
So now is when, and because we are working with a group of young people we call agripreneurs, they've been allocated that area. They'll have a treatment model for each area, where now you'll say, okay, for your area, these were the results of your soil samples, and therefore the recommended treatment for you to grow healthy soil is this. Not necessarily just the fertilizer.
Very interested in what this soil survey will then be able to give in terms of information to now see how you can increase yields. Let's take a break and we'll come back and maybe go into that a little bit more. Dr. Menjo is a food security advisor in the office of the president, and we're having a conversation about food security and its updates. Updating you at this point and asking you the question, what steps have you taken to make sure that you can start to create, grow, and manage your wealth? The first thing you need to do is send an email to wealth.kenya@sc.com. The folks at Standard Chartered Bank, for the longest time, and when I say the longest time, 110 years, have targeted experience in helping you do just this in 50 plus unique markets around the world. And they're just an email away. With the few coins that you have, with the grand ideas that you have for the future, where you want to put your money and how you want to go about it, they're in the business of holding your hand and getting you to do that today. Grow, manage, create wealth with Standard Chartered Priority Banking. It's wealth.kenya@sc.com.